welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe introduce yourself, and why you're interested in this conversation that we're working toward with these recordings.
Well, my name is Mallory Moad, and people in Fresno know me for a lot of different things. I've been a visual artist, I've been a musician, I've been an actress, but today we're going to concentrate on my performance art background. And I think that's one of the things that really makes me interested in this project, is like it's a great big performance piece.
So that said, what does power mean to you? Like, if you had to explain what it meant to have power or to use it, what would you say?
For me, and in my experience, power is the ability to affect change and to get things done, and through that doing of things, affect change, whether it's change, big change, or a little personal change. That to me is the necessary component, that power and change go hand in hand.
So how did you arrive at this understanding of what power is and how it works in people's individual lives? Well,
this sort of goes along with changing. And this is the first time I took a situation that wasn't working in my favor and changed it. My first public performance piece was quite a few years ago, and it was a piece called Dada Voodoo, and it was staged in a truck outside an art gallery in downtown Fresno. And it involved a voodoo doll, big voodoo doll, mounted on a dartboard at the long down there rear end of the truck. People would come in, it was an audience participation piece, put their toes up along the line, hand them 3 darts, and they would throw the darts at this voodoo doll that they had labeled with a name tag of something that they needed to purge from their mind, from their life, whatever. So it was a positive voodoo thing. They weren't wishing pain or suffering on any particular individual. They were trying to get rid of this nasty stuff that was bogging them down. So we did that, and it was very popular, and it was well received, and people had a good time, and it was cool. And then a month or two later, a friend of mine who was working for a local arts organization that shall remain nameless contacted me and said, "Hey, we want you to do this piece as part of Art Hop, and we want to do it in City Hall." And I thought, well, that's fun. I'll reach a different audience. Maybe people will be upset about different things now. Who knows? This could be cool. So I went down and I checked out the space. Everything was going great until a few days later I got a letter from someone who was a little bit higher up in this unnamed organization than my friend that said, darts are a weapon, and we can't have weapons in City Hall. Okay, this was just baffling. Okay, fine, whatever. Can't you use Velcro? No, I can't use Velcro. We can't throw beanbags. And rather than compromise the integrity of this piece, I just said, you know what? I can't do this. This is not something that in my heart I can do. I cannot adapt to your rules. Well, that wasn't that. I took it one step further. I took that letter and I typed it out on a crummy old typewriter, and I blacked out all the pertinent information. So I had censored it. Oh, bad. So I've got this letter explaining the whole thing with names and stuff blacked out. Then I took a photograph of myself. The beret, dark glasses, fist up, very defiant, black turtleneck. And across the top, I typed with that crappy old typewriter, "Terror Artist." And I made a poster with the photograph and the letter, took them out, ran them off at Kinko's or wherever, and I posted those all over town. So I took that situation that was not exactly what I'd hoped it would be and turned it into a different performance piece. And I laughed the whole time. I just thought it was hilarious. And on my website, I even offered to send posters to people who might want to put it up in their own town in solidarity. And that's when I realized, yeah, you can turn things around. And it felt pretty darn good. And it affected a change in the way I saw things and the way I saw that situation. They tried to take something away from me, but I turned around and made something that was mine.
So would you say that this experience marked a turning point in your creative process?
I don't know that it was a turning point, but it definitely turned on a light.
Mm-hmm. And now by light, can you explain a little bit more what you mean by that?
I became aware that there are other ways of dealing with things, creative ways of dealing with things, creative ways to get one up on the other guy.
So for you, would you say that creating, especially in the context of performance art, is kind of a claiming or maybe even a reclaiming of power for you?
Performance art, sure it is. My performance background is actually theater, musical theater and non-musical theater as well. And I've done that for a number of years before I stumbled into performance art. And the problem that I started having with it was theater is very judgmental and it's very structured. Mm-hmm. And if you are an actor or a singer, whatever, there's always someone telling you how to do it. And it's not as dictatorial as I'm making it sound, but you still have someone who is telling you how to do things. And I started to get tired of that, and I wanted to do things my own way. And through classes that I was taking at Fresno State at the time, I'd gone back to get my teaching credential, and it required taking more art classes than I had taken when I got my degree. I encountered some instructors who approached things differently. A drawing teacher, for example, who had us do a drawing and then reproduce that drawing in other media, not necessarily a visual medium, a photograph or a painting. And so I chose to reproduce that image as a performance piece. Mm-hmm. And that was my gateway out of conventional theater.
So for you, what is it specifically about performance art that you're drawn to?
I can make my own decisions in terms of my performance. I can use whatever techniques are conducive to a piece. I have freedom.
And what's interesting about that is there's also a certain vulnerability, I think, to performance art.
There's a lot of risk involved. Big time risk in performance art, especially in an environment like Fresno. And I am not going to put Fresno down. I don't do that. But it's a fairly conservative community. And anytime you put something like performance art out in that kind of context, it's pretty risky. And I don't mean in a physical way. I never thought that anybody was going to come up and do terrible things to me because I'd done some kind of a weird performance piece. But just, I think audiences here, when they hear performance, they think Fiddler on the Roof or a show, a show. There's nothing wrong with Fiddler on the Roof, but it is a very traditional, kind of performance. And a lot of people think, oh, it's the Nutcracker or it's dancing. But performance art isn't any of that stuff, but it's all of that stuff at the same time.
So it kind of defies expectation in ways that may be hard for people to deal with?
I think so. It requires a different mindset for the audience, at least at first. Now, granted, the stuff that I do, the pieces that I have done, I don't think they're particularly weird. I don't think they are off-putting. They've been, in a lot of ways, very theatrical, but they aren't lines from a script and songs on the stage, and not always predictable.
Have you run into any, I don't want to say challenges, but I guess differences of experience with this part that you, with performance art and how it's received, that you feel maybe based on the fact that you're a woman, or at least perceived through that lens?
I am physically a very small person. I'm maybe a little over 5 feet tall, and there seems to be this perception of small women that we're just going to be, not going to cause any trouble, just going to kind of be cute and quiet. And apparently I am not that way, because I have it on good authority that I scare people. I'm a holy terror, I guess. I don't know. But I think that speaking your mind, being open about your beliefs and just your mental method isn't something that's expected from someone who is little. That's the best I can figure. I don't think I'm a particularly frightening person, but I guess I am.
So, now off camera, you had told us a little bit about some of those experiences, where, people didn't quite know what to do with this very small, very forthright person they were encountering. Can you talk about maybe one of those?
Sure. I had an art-related job, a good one, with an organization in town that shall remain nameless. And the job went away. There were 4 of us. All of our jobs went away. I felt, in part, because of the way finances were handled by this unnamed organization in town. And we were called in for a meeting one day, and I spoke my mind. And I said exactly what I just told you then, that my job was going away, and I felt that they were responsible by mishandling funds, and that they were losing a very valuable program, as well as 4 very valuable employees. And the woman who called this meeting was not my supervisor. She was my supervisor's supervisor. And I heard back from my supervisor later that I had actually scared this woman. And there were times after that I would encounter this woman in public, and she would not look me in the eye.
So it was kind of a reluctance to even...
Yeah, to make contact with me. It was over. That was the past. As far as I'm concerned, I spoke my mind, and that was that. And being honest with my feelings was obviously very important to me. But it's not like I was going to chase this woman down the aisle at Trader Joe's screaming at her, or slash the tires of her car. I don't know what she was thinking, but obviously speaking your mind can be very powerful.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today, and we hope to hear much more from you in the future.
Thank you.